Borbola, Vice President with Sierra Bank, will be following with the national anthem.
Thank you, President Sean, President-elect Sean. Bow our heads. We are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged and give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen.
Thank you. You may take your seats. In the 1930s, Herbert Taylor was with the Club Aluminum Products Company, and they were facing bankruptcy. He put together a recovery plan and decided that they needed to change their ethical climate. He wanted to put together a simple, easily remembered set of instructions. He eventually became the international director at Rotary in the 1940s, and his four-way test became adopted, and it's what we know today. It's our moral code for personal and business relationships. Please repeat it with me. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Now, Ryan Barrera, Director of Community Relations for Tarrant and Ellis County, Salvation Army of North Texas. Please join for welcoming of visiting Rotarians and guests. There's not much
Thank you, President-elect. Today's guest list is about 36 long, so with respect to Mr. John Goff, I've been asked to just thank every visiting guest today in the room and tuning in over Zoom. Welcome. And just as a quick blanket, would all guests in attendance with us today please stand and be welcomed? Please. Very good. Thank you.
And now, it may not be fake news, it may not be news at all, but it is our own humorous take on current events. Derek Moffitt, Principal and Financial Advisor with Moffitt Financial Strategies, is our newscaster today. Take it away, Derek.
Well, thank you guys so much. This is my first newscast, and after today, I'm sure it will be my last. You know, I really was concerned in preparing this. I didn't want to offend anybody. In the culture that we live in, it's so easily to get offended. And then I didn't want to violate the four-way test, and so I was concerned about that. But really, I was worried about that frightening speech that J.R. Labby gave at the beginning of the Rotary year. So I asked her if she would help me, and I emailed my script to her, and I said, JR, would you please just kind of review, remove anything you don't think is appropriate or might be offensive, and would you just make any edits to that you think will help make this really a success? And this is what she sent me back. So today I will read the newscast as edited by J.R. Labby. I feel as welcome as, redacted, redacted, redacted. After Mitch Reitman's last news class, I think I will, in politics, and GOP Representative Paul Gosar. There was a little laughter there, JR, not much. This week, 13, in response, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said, in response, Senator Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said, this week, President Biden announced, a little more laughter on that one, we can now, I still think we can, JR, I really do. In sports, football game, the Texas Rangers have, fans now think, and finally. The weather this week will be sunny. The highs will be in the 70s on Saturdays. Sunday will be cloudy and the highs in the 60s. It's a wonderful weekend to go spend time with your family and get outdoors, enjoy the people that you love. Thank you.
Before continuing on, I want to make sure that we thank our sponsor for today. I think I missed it early on. It is Visit Fort Worth, and we've got a number of the folks with us here today. Thank you, Bob Jameson and team, very, very much. You're very appreciated. Now with a few announcements. First, I've got Shanna Saldana, Business Development with Lindbeck Group, with an announcement regarding the We Care Christmas event.
Thank you. We'll squeeze up here together. Hi, guys. I hope all of you are getting your Santa hats ready and getting ready to come out and help us on December the 8th from 4 to 8. We will be gathering for the We Care program to help about 150 kiddos prepare Christmas gifts for their families. We still need volunteer carolers, decorators, and face painters. So if you're interested, grab this beautiful little flyer on your desk, snap the QR code to register. We hope to see you guys there. Thank you.
You know, as Rotarians, community service is, of course, one of our avenues of service, and we assume a responsibility to find ways to increase the quality of life and serve the public interest. With another opportunity is Dr. Shagranda Traveler is with us. She's the EVP of Advocacy and Communications at Tarrant Area Food Bank with another community service opportunity.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to provide a brief update on where we are with our Rotary Readers program. So far, since we launched the program at the end of September, we have had over 40+ volunteer hours. That means that we have 14 students that are being supported by this initiative. The students that are being served, I want you all to hear this, have received up to 26 levels of improvement with our Rotary Readers. Let's give them applause. We provided 65, all of the third graders at the campus with a personalized dictionary that they're able to take home. And at the beginning of this month, we supported, President Courtney and I supported the Literacy Night effort at the school, and they had 84 students that attended, and the club, so each of you in the room supported us purchasing 48 books for that campus with a total investment of pouring back into that school over $600. Another round of applause. So I will go quickly through the remainder of this. I just want you all to see some of the good things that we're doing in the campus. President Courtney is definitely a great advocate as well. This is a verbatim quote from the campus. "It is a privilege and an honor to partner with this wonderful organization. What you do matters. May every jet soar." So again, give yourselves a round of applause. Now, I am not going to go through all of these statistics, but because they can be pretty startling. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is according to the National Adult Literacy Survey, 70% of all incarcerated adults cannot read at a 4th grade level. Let that sink in. So this is what I want to end with you all considering. If you have ever wondered why this initiative is important, please know that even 1 hour of your time per week makes a difference in the lives of our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shagranda, and thank you to all the Rotarians who do support our readers every week. We now have one second reading today. The following proposed new member was submitted during the November 12th program, and if no objections are received through the voting process, then the proposed member will be accepted into our club. Come up and find space for me, with me. We're going to do a duo dance up here.
Thank you, Madam President-elect. Good afternoon, everyone. Our proposed new member is Melissa Rankin, classification Finance Investment. Melissa is a financial advisor with Edward Jones. Her proposer is John Loudenslager. I move her election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
I have a motion and I have a second. Let's please vote. The ayes have it, and she is hereby elected. Welcome, Melissa. We now have a new blue badge wearer. I would like Janet Hahn, attorney and shareholder with Decker Jones, to please come to the stage. Janet, it's about time you became a Rotarian, and a real Rotarian. I would love to take that red badge, and I'm going to swap it out for this blue one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome. We now have one more new member introduction. Could I please have Jason Ray and new member Matt Jacobs take the stage?
My pleasure to introduce Matt Jacobs. Matt has a Rotarian's heart. He's shown that by moving from the for-profit world to the nonprofit world to use his talents there. He's shown it with he and his wife adopting 2 kids out of the foster care system a couple years ago and being a terrific dad to those boys. And so I give you Matt Jacobs.
Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say that I work at Catholic Charities Fort Worth in the social enterprise group. We have a dental clinic, an immigration group, and I'm in charge of a 35 driver team member transportation group that serve all of Tarrant County, so I'm very blessed. And I just wanted to say, after my second visit here, I knew I wanted to join. Everyone's been so gracious and helpful, and I just look forward to working with you in the future to support the community. Thank you.
And now, I think we're all looking forward to hearing from our guest speaker today. So Mark Nerden, past president, he will come up and introduce today's speaker, John Goff.
All right. Thank you very much, President-elect Sean. Good afternoon. You know, there are a lot of people that need introductions. There are a few that need no introduction at all, and I think this gentleman sitting to my left is one of those individuals. Please give a warm Fort Worth Rotary Club welcome for the latest inductee into the Texas Business Hall of Fame, John Goff. So John, first of all, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. But more importantly, thank you for everything that you do for Fort Worth. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I do want to say one thing. I think it's really terrific that this organization gets together on a routine basis the way it does. And it's been a while since I've been here, but just the formality of it, I think, is actually refreshing. It's formal, but yet it's fun, and I love the fact that the national anthem is part of the process. I just think it's terrific. So I congratulate all of you for sticking with this and all the good work that emanates from it.
We appreciate that, John. All right, so John, a couple years ago, our former Mayor Betsy Price appointed you to lead Fort Worth Now, which was an economic development initiative. I'd be curious to know, what did you learn in that process, and what does Fort Worth need to do to continue to evolve into that world-class city to which we all aspire, while at the same time maintaining our culture and our charm that makes Fort Worth such a great city?
Well, the first thing I learned is to be really careful for what I volunteer for. Betsy called and asked if I would do this, and it was right in the thick of the pandemic. So if I remember correctly, it was probably March, April timeframe. And she called both myself and Elaine Agather, and we became co-chairs of Fort Worth Now. There were two purposes of the organization. The first was to help advise and work us through the pandemic and deal with a lot of the emergencies that occurred, during the pandemic process. And the second part was perhaps even more important, because we already had a lot of talent working on the first part, and that is to think about ways to take Fort Worth to a whole nother level coming out of this, the crisis that we were experiencing along with the rest of the world. And very big mission, and certainly what I didn't want to do was overlap with the good works of Brandon and his team at the chamber, and what the city's doing to court new businesses. So we had to think of things that we could do beyond that, or that wouldn't overlap. And I could go on about a lot of things that we thought about and that we embarked on, but the first thing we did is we assembled a team. So we went out to business leaders, community leaders, et cetera, to create sort of a informal board that would help advise us, and we subdivided that into various teams, and it ranged from education to business development to even the music and theater scene that we wanted to try to get revitalized in the city and hopefully take to another level post-pandemic. So a lot of different facets, and education was also another very important part. But here's the thing, we've got, believe it or not, Fort Worth is the single fastest growing city right now in the United States on a percentage basis, even faster than Austin. Am I right, Brandon? I think that's the right stat. Faster than Austin, faster than Seattle. And when you look at that, we're now roughly 1 million residents, and if you look at the greater Fort Worth area, obviously it's far bigger. But what's really unique about Fort Worth that struck me is the fact that we do not, within the boundaries of this beautiful city, have a Tier 1 research institution. And that is a real issue long-term. It's an issue for new businesses that want to relocate here, because that's one of the first things. If you look at a checklist of what a big company is looking for in a community, that's one of them. I mean, it's transportation systems, it's public education, but it's also Tier 1 research. We don't have that. We are the largest city in the US without that. So I said, okay, this is a huge challenge, but I thought back on a meeting that I had with Bobby Audier who's the dean of the A&M Law School. And that meeting was probably 2 years ago, thereabouts. And he called me out of the blue and he said, hey, John, I want to introduce myself. I want to show you what we're up to at the law school, and law school's doing great things. I said, sure, come on by. We had lunch. And I described Bobby affectionately as a BB in a beer can. He's got so much energy. He's such a nice guy, and he's doing incredible things at the law school. And I was very impressed with what he was done. But also, what was interesting is when we looked at the footprint of what A&M owns, they own 4 city blocks in what I would call a blighted part of downtown that really needs a boost. But it's like a blank canvas. And so when I was appointed to Fort Worth Now, I called Bobby and I put him on this informal board that we created. And I said, Bobby, I want to think about whether or not there's a chance that we could bring A&M to the table in a big way in downtown Fort Worth. This would be a game changer. And so that led to development of a plan that we then set up a meeting. Betsy Price and I, the mayor and myself and some others went down with Bobby to College Station. And this was during the height of the pandemic, by the way. We were all in masks and the whole bit. And we go to this meeting with John Sharp, who's the chancellor of the A&M system, which, by the way, is one of the largest systems in the United States, with about a $10 billion annual budget. And John Sharp assembled, I thought it was going to be 2 or 3 people. It was a room full of 20 to 30 of the top people in the entire system. And I sat right next to John, and we went through this presentation, which was, frankly, hurriedly put together, but it was well done. And John looked at me and pulled his mask down and said, "We're going to do this." And I'm telling you, from that point, he gave me his cell phone number, and we text almost daily. And that's been for well over a year. We've become very good friends. Oddly, after the announcement, I went down to my alma mater, University of Texas, and we have a suite for the football game. And I was down there in the suite, and this was last weekend, and I had the governor in the suite, and I had John Sharp, the chancellor of A&M, in our UT suite. And we weren't playing A&M, so it was kind of odd. But anyway, he wanted to come, and he wanted to talk with the governor and myself about the plans for Fort Worth. And I've got to tell you, we have huge buy-in on this. And what you read in the paper and what you saw at the announcement is one level of what's going to be done. And I'll shut up here in a minute because I could go on forever about this, but I'm really excited about it. But this is going to be even bigger than what has been announced. It is going to be a total game changer for this city. It's going to give us a leg up that we've never had. I think it's and I'm not trying to take a nickel's worth of credit here. I'm just telling you, I think this is the single biggest announcement for this city in decades.
All right. So I noticed at the press conference the other day, the picture that was taken, it was you and Chancellor Sharp, former Mayor Betsy Price, our current Mayor Mattie Parker, and Judge Glenn Whitley. All of them were flashing the GIM sign except you. What was up with that, John?
They caught me at a weak moment. I wasn't sure what to do. There were pictures taken with me doing the Gig'em sign. Look, I'm agnostic when it comes to Fort Worth. I want Fort Worth to win. And just to state the case, I moved here in 1981. I did not grow up here. I didn't know a soul. And this city has been nothing but wonderful for me, my family, raising kids. It's just been a beautiful community, and I'm very appreciative, and I want to give back every way I can.
Well, you may not have been born here, but we claim you as one of our own. So, all right, so I'm going to ask a few personal questions to get to know you on a personal level. So, which program will win the next national championship, UT football or UT basketball?
By the looks of it, neither one, but I would say I'm going to give that nod to UT basketball.
All right, very good. Their coach is Chris Beard, who they pulled from my alma mater, Texas Tech. So I think that's probably a pretty good bet. All right, let's talk about the cultural district development. How is that going to transform the cultural district, John?
Well, to start with, I drive by that site. If everybody knows, I'm sure everybody knows where the site we're talking about, right across from the Modern and the Kimball and the Amon Carter, right across Camp Bowie. That's my route to the office every day. And, in driving by, I've always thought, God, what a great piece of real estate. I've got a lot of real estate in my blood, and I've just looked at it and I've thought, why has everyone had such a difficult time in that development? And there's just always been all this friction, and it's been primarily, I think, a result of out-of-town developers, and not knocking them, but I don't think brought a lot of creativity to the table. And so coincidentally, I got a call from Mary Ralph Lowe, who had an option on the land, and she said, hey, I need to meet with you. And she was almost in tears. She said, I don't know what to do. This is just she's a neighbor of mine, so we're good friends. And she said, I just feel like I'm in over my head in terms of trying to develop a hotel. And I said, so I looked at this agreement she was about to sign, and I said, well, first thing, don't sign that agreement. It was a terrible management agreement with a hotel system. And we own a lot of hotels around the country, and so I know a lot about that business. And anyway, I talked with her, and she basically handed the option agreement over to us. We closed on the land. We're going to name her only requirement was that we name a bar within the hotel Ralph's Bar. She goes affectionately by Ralph. And so we're going to do that. We're going to have a Ralph's Bar up on the roof. But it's going to I think it's going to transform the district and do a lot for the city. We need more first-class hotel rooms in the city. The new one in Stockyards is really nice, and they did a beautiful job, and it's getting great demand. We have demand for a lot more of these kind of rooms. So that's the objective. So it's going to be hotel. It's going to be 170,000 feet of office. I'm going to move all my offices of my different companies in there, so we'll take roughly a third of the building. And then we're going to have very high-end apartments, which will be the nicest apartments in the city. And then we're going to wedged in between the apartments and the hotel will be a Canyon Ranch, which is a company that I own that's based here in town, and it's going to be our first urban wellness club. And it's going to be phenomenal. So you'll be able to get a membership there, go work out, get massages, all kinds of treatment. We'll have authorities in there from exercise physiology and beyond, and it's going to be terrific.
That development will be a destination in and of itself, won't it?
Oh, no doubt. There's so many out-of-town visitors. I think people don't realize how many people we get from all over the world that come in to visit those museums, as well as go to the rodeo, cutting horse competitions, and other events within the cultural district and the museums and the botanic gardens. So that's, we want to be the hub of that activity. And as I like to call it, I want to have it the living room of Fort Worth. When you drive down Camp Bowie, I want that to be just a lit jewel box that attracts you in.
So Visit Fort Worth is our sponsor today. Bob Jameson and his team are here. I actually serve as Bob's chairman. Given your work with Fort Worth Now, talk to us a little bit about the importance of tourism and convention business insofar as economic development is concerned.
Well, anytime we have any event, and Bob and yourself know this well, you have this opportunity to showcase the city. So being able to showcase world-class museums, a cultural district that is truly unique, and I would argue beyond anything else in Texas, that's in that condensed of an environment is a very important thing. So, I know the plan is to do a significant renovation, expansion of the convention center, critically needed. And now with some of the money that's come in from the federal government, et cetera, we'll be able to get that kicked off. That will dovetail with the whole A&M development, a redo of the water gardens. It's going to be phenomenal. Fort Worth is going to look and feel very different within the next 3 to 5 years. And all of these things work in concert. They work together and are very critical to attract not only companies, but one of the things we found out in Fort Worth Now is we need a way to bring young talent in, and we need to have a better educated workforce for companies to draw from. And so this whole A&M development will play a big role in that.
Very good. All right, so another personal question here. When you were negotiating the deal with Mary Ralph Lowe, supposedly you shared a beer with her. So Pilsner or stout?
You know, I'm not a big beer drinker anymore, but I actually had a Corona Light
There we go.
with lime.
All right, thank you, John. All right, let's turn to your investments. You are currently the CEO of Contango Oil and Gas, and you're bullish on the fossil fuels industry. However, the current administration does not seem to be a friend of the oil and gas industry. Alternative sources of fuel are being developed. Electric cars seem to be gaining momentum. So describe for us your investment thesis today in the fossil fuels industry.
Well, my foray into oil and gas dates all the way back to when I was with Richard Rainwater in the late 80s, and we made a variety of oil and gas investments that ended up being really interesting. We created INSCO, the drilling company, out of a bankrupt company called Blocker Energy back in the late 80s. So I've had a lot of people think, you know, all I do is real estate, and that's one part of what I do, but this whole energy investment is a big push. I basically had very little exposure to the energy industry going into 2015, and then at the downturn in 2015, I brought the whole team in my family office into the conference room, and I said, I want to focus on energy, and I want to make a big bet. And we did. And so what we found is the best deals were in the public marketplace at the time, because stocks had really gotten oversold. And so we made a variety of investments. Wilkie Collier in my office really led the charge. I had invested in him to really learn the industry. And so we made a lot of investments in the public market. Fortunately, those worked out very well. And then I decided what we wanted to do was to create our own vehicle, but we wanted it a public company. So we found this little, frankly, kind of down and out company called Contango Oil and Gas, which was based in Houston. It was a small little oil and gas company, but it needed new leadership. And I knew some of the board members. The board said, John, if you'll come in and take a big position, you know, we'll basically turn the company over to, you know, your team. So I put Wilkie in as CEO. I bought 20%. Literally over a weekend, we negotiated about 20% of the company from a shareholder that wanted out. And anyway, so we did that. It was a hell of a lot of work to fix it, more than we envisioned. But within about a year to a year and a half, we had it back on good footing. And now we've used that and we've grown it substantially. And so then fast forward to earlier this year, I was approached by my good friend Henry Kravis of KKR based in New York. And they really liked what we were doing because we've been buying a lot of assets and companies very inexpensively in this downturn. And so he said, I really like what you're doing. We're having a really difficult time raising private capital because everyone is, you know, redlining hydrocarbons. What if we teamed up? Because we would like to have a public vehicle. So we're doing a merger, which will, knock on wood, close in early December. And I was very honored because KKR has said we're going to rename the company, and they're going to rename it, or we're renaming it Crescent Energy. So we'll have Crescent Real Estate, we'll have Crescent Energy. We'll trade on the New York Stock Exchange, and it will be, what was about $1 billion company will now become a $5 or $6 billion company. So, and I'll be chairman of that, and that's going to be our big focus on the energy sector. Big picture, I'm all for a clean environment. I'm all for focusing on our climate on a global basis. It's a critical thing to do, but let's do it intelligently. There's so much being done via emotion and without facts that it just makes me ill. If you think about an electric vehicle, every electric vehicle has a minimum of a 1,000-pound battery in it. That 1,000-pound battery requires the extraction of nickel and cobalt and other minerals out of the earth. And really what we're doing is we're substituting one form of fracture of the earth, just poking a hole in the ground and extracting hydrocarbons, for another, which is basically strip mining. And if you've ever seen a cobalt mine, I will tell you, you'll have another thought about an electric vehicle. So are electric vehicles going to be the wave of the future? Absolutely. But we have a long way to go with technology before it's done in an environmentally friendly way. We don't have the capacity on this earth to transform all the vehicles we drive to electric. We'll have the entire earth mined as well as the seabeds to create that much cobalt and nickel. So battery technology is going to have to go a long way. We're not there yet. And I'm not saying we shouldn't work our way to it. Let's do it. Let's do it intelligently. So I think there's a real role for hydrocarbons. We haven't seen peak demand. Peak demand is going to come, in my opinion, in the next 10 years. And we're nowhere near replenishing the supply of energy that we're consuming. And in fact, by most measures, we're over $1 trillion on a global basis behind on replenishing the hydrocarbons we've consumed since 2015. So it's my thesis that there is a role. We just need to be responsible developers of hydrocarbons, and that's the intent of Crescent Energy. And I'm very, very bullish on the sector.
So you talked a little bit about the merger with KKR. Do you foresee additional consolidation in the oil and gas business over the next several years?
No doubt. There's going to be consolidation. There's going to be a big focus on being more environmentally friendly and responsible. There's going to be a lot of the big majors are going to be divesting because of shareholder pressure. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to be an aggregator of great assets, and that's what I want to do.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience, if that's okay.
Sure.
So what's the most compelling alternative energy source, in your opinion, solar or wind?
Of the two, I would pick solar, but the technology is not there yet. Wind is a joke. J-O-K-E, joke.
You want to elaborate on that?
The technology only works, or the math only works with help from the government. It is an environmental disaster. I mean, first of all, if you look at the manufacture and the hydrocarbons it takes to manufacture the actual physical product, because most of it's fiberglass. Fiberglass is made of resin. Resin comes from the oil and gas sector. And then you build these massive things, and they do not decompose, and they only last a fixed period of time. So then you have to take those things apart. They're huge, takes massive trucks, lots of oil and gas to go do that, and you got to bury them. Where are you going to put them? They don't decompose. They're going to be in that state for our lifetime and the lifetime of many beyond us. So they also consume land, and now we've got the Biden administration talking about putting them all along the coast around the U.S. It's insane. It's just simply a popular thing to say that is not based in science. It is not based on any form of factual scientific evidence. I'm kind of a geek. I read a lot of things. I take a satchel home every weekend, a canvas bag filled with, I still read hard copies of things, filled with data. And I pour through this. And I'm telling you, I've talked to people that manufacture windmills. They laugh about it. If you really get them behind the curtain and talk to them, the math doesn't work. Now, could it work? Possibly, but there's got to be a lot of technological advancement for that to make any sense. Solar has a lot of the same issues. Solar has a lot of graphite, a lot of uh, uh, oil and gas components required to create solar panels, and then they consume vast amounts of real estate, and we don't have the battery technology to store in a, like a capacitor, all that energy. We're just not there on technology. I think it's great we're experimenting with it, and I think ultimately these things may play a meaningful role, but right now I think it's a popular science experiment that does not work.
In one of the articles that I read recently, you talked about big tobacco model and how that might be applicable in the energy space. And big tobacco, when they realized they were in a declining industry, started returning capital back to the shareholders, right? Do you believe the oil and gas industry could play a role in developing alternatives if, rather than return capital to shareholders, they invested in alternatives? Is that a possibility?
Well, they're doing that. The big companies are really doing that. But I think in many cases, they're doing it uneconomically. They're doing it, again, more based on pressure from shareholders and environmental activists. They're not really doing it because the math works. But yes, I think there should be a responsible evolution from burning hydrocarbons to other forms of power. We've abandoned nuclear, and nuclear we kind of have figured out. It actually works really, really well. France is a great example. But we can burn hydrocarbons, we can extract hydrocarbons in a much more environmentally friendly way, and the real impact to the environment can definitely be managed if we do it correctly and we use new technologies with engines. It exists. Boone Pickens actually had it right when he pushed on using natural gas to power vehicles. It's a very clean way to create transportation. Very clean way.
All right, let's open it up for some questions from the audience. Who has a question for John? Yes. Bob.
Yeah, so Bob asked, what is the flag going to be on the hotel? It's not too early. The flag is going to be Crescent. So we own a lot of properties around the country, and we have one Crescent Hotel, and we own that brand. So we're actually going to brand this Crescent, and it'll be managed with an affiliation we have with a company that manages a lot of our hotels, but it's not a Ritz or Marriott or Westin. We have found that we can do a better job and more cost-effective job with our own brand. So it will be a Crescent flag.
Other questions? Yes.
So for those of you that couldn't hear the question, what would it take to get nuclear, to not abandon nuclear, but embrace it as a power generation? I don't mean this flippantly, but I don't know a kinder way of saying it. A smart president. That's what it would take. Leadership. We have no leadership.
Right over here, Joe.
So the question dealt with public schools and what do we need to do to turn them around? And it's a wonderful question, and it's a huge issue for our community. It's a huge issue for corporate relocations, for attracting new families, new talent. This school issue is big. And it's a great question, and I've been spending time with Mayor Parker on this issue. You know, I think the answer ranges from busting up the district into smaller components that are more competitive. It may be, and I've been told by people who know a lot more about school administration than me, that that's not necessarily a great idea, that we just need the right leadership. And I think, you know, we spend more on administration than we do the students. The math is crazy to me. And I'm disappointed that with a city of this size, we haven't had just outstanding leadership for our public schools, and it's critical. And, you know, we have been very involved, my foundation's been very involved, and I have to tell you, that's been a struggle, getting traction and to really be embraced by this district. I think it's too much of a bureaucracy. We've just got to somehow bust that up. I think it's going to be, the end of the day, it's going to be pressure from all of us in this room with the administration, and we're just going to have to force a change. So whether that's change of leadership, change of, you know, we got to really focus on these school board elections and who we put into power. It's, you know, the stat of the bond election winning by 57 votes, that's one interesting stat. The other interesting stat is I think there was only 12,000 votes in a community of 1 million people. It's crazy that not more people are getting out and voting. So I think that's the real problem. We've all got to step up and force change.
The questions. Mitch.
Tell us about another project you looked at with Corporate Now.
Well, one that's really interesting is we need to foster more innovation. So the A&M deal will clearly work on that. But we're also, we're going to be announcing, I hope, we're getting very close on it, a accelerator. So you've probably heard of incubators. Incubators are a way to take business ideas and see if they can't become business worthy. The next phase of that is an accelerator with something that is more of a proven concept to take it and accelerate it into a business and an investable business. And we have found, and I attribute Dr. Michael Williams, who just was promoted to chancellor of the UNT system, he spearheaded this effort for us, and he did a great job. And so Michael came up with this idea in a specific company that would help us with creating an accelerator. I got so excited about it that, and we got the city and county to participate. They've already committed. And I got so excited that I said, I'll fund half of it if UNT will fund the other half. So we now have all the money raised, and we're in the final documentation. So this is going to be big. And the focus of this, this accelerator will be physical therapy, rehabilitation. The technology that exists in that sector is very weak and rudimentary, and there are a lot of innovations that could occur. And so we're going to be trying to identify those companies, have them physically here, and then help them grow. So we hope to announce that soon.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Brandon.
Okay, gaming and crypto. Gaming, my oldest son was a gamer, Travis. and I can't remember the Counter-Strike was the one he played in high school. He loved football and sports, but he also did this at night rather than study, I think. But anyway, he came to me with the idea of buying an esports team, and so it was an interesting team, and I kind of looked at the math. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's obviously there's so many eyeballs of young people and middle-aged people that focus on this whole gaming sector that I thought this is interesting. I said, but the only way I do it is to be in partnership with a really big sports organization. So I went to Jerry Jones, who's a good friend, and showed this deal to Jerry. And I said, look, if you want to split this, we're interested in doing it. And so we did. And so that has really grown, and we now merged it with a public company called GameSquare, and it's really interesting. It's going to be a big growing sector, and we'll play a role, but it's kind of attached to. We have the power of the Cowboys organization from a marketing standpoint, which is big. Crypto. I've got some really smart young talent in our family office, and one of the guys really got fascinated, and he's made a lot of money for us. He's just a super talented young man, and he did a lot of research and finally convinced me that we should do a small investment in crypto. So I did do it. Now, I didn't really believe in the whole crypto scene so much, but what I did do was look at the blockchain and I talked to some people I knew in General Electric. I have a good friend that was in charge of all their aerospace business. And I called him and I said, are y'all doing anything on this blockchain? I know enough to be dangerous. And he said, John, we're spending, I forget what the number was, $10 or $15 million a year, putting an entire blockchain system together that's going to be sourcing and distributing our products. And he said, that's going to be the wave of the future. So that intrigued me. So we ended up making a fairly modest investment in crypto. It has become, I'm almost embarrassed. I mean, it's just become crazy, bigger than I ever imagined. But it's, probably gotten way ahead of itself, but it's very interesting. The blockchain is particularly interesting. I don't believe necessarily in Bitcoin per se. Ethereum actually has some real interesting aspects to it that are unique operating as part of the blockchain. But
all right. Before I hand the mic back over to President-elect Sean, please join me in thanking John Goff for his presence with us here today.
And John Goff, on behalf of the Grateful Rotary Club and community, thank you for appreciation for joining us today, and we hope to see you back in a few years, if not sooner. Thank you very much. Thank you again. We learned a lot. He had given us an advanced look at where Fort Worth is going to be headed in the next 3 to 5 years. We got the Kravis merger with Crescent Energy, oil and gas insights. He's bullish on Fort Worth, bullish on energy, and as I touched on a moment ago, he did not go into very much detail about his family foundation, but they are also very involved in literacy here in Fort Worth. And so again, on behalf of a grateful community, we appreciate your business leadership and your civic leadership. And as we head into a holiday weekend, I thought it would be noteworthy to pause. Today is November 19th. On this day in history, Abraham Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address. It was a dedication for the National Cemetery. And the words are perhaps more meaningful than ever. It was only 2 minutes long. It was 272 words. And he said at the time that people would probably not long remember what he said. We know it started 77 years ago. It ends like this: it is for us, the living, to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that this nation, under God, should have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. So more than ever, we can hang onto those words. It's also worth noting that coincidentally, 1 month earlier in 1863, Abraham Lincoln had first proclaimed the first National Day of Thanksgiving. So as we end today's meeting, we want to once again thank our sponsor, Visit Fort Worth. Fort Worth, city of cowboys and culture. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mitch. If you would like to see your business represented up here for a virtual or in-person meeting sponsorship, please see Shanna Saldana or Aurora or any of us after the meeting. Meeting announcements, there's a board of directors meeting in the Bellevue Room on the 12th floor following this meeting. International Committee meets in Davy O'Brien on the 11th floor. Next week, don't come here. You will be on the sofa recuperating or Black Friday shopping, and we will see you December 5th. This meeting is adjourned.